This woman found herself transmigrated into the role of the malicious villainess, Hibris, in a romance novel. Despite being the only daughter of a marquess and the fiancée of the crown prince, she was set up as a pitiful sacrifice in the story. In the original novel, though Hibris deeply loved the crown prince, his heart belonged only to the sweet and pitiable female lead, Helena, while Hibris faced his cruelty. A few days ago, under the pretext of taking a break in Randall, Hibris, along with her knight Anakin, boarded the newly operational magic train. However, midway through the journey, Hibris cunningly slipped away from the train to visit the formal priest Matthias. She did this for two reasons: to find a way back to her original world and to show some backbone to the arrogant royal family and her father, Marquis Mysarion. Now that her mission was accomplished, she and Anakin were ready to set off for the Randall district. Soon after, they boarded a carriage bound for the Randall district. Hibris began to tell Anakin about her original world, which was far more advanced than the Empire, with religious freedom. While they lacked the magic and magitech of the Empire, they possessed a technology called science. There were no social hierarchies, no royal or noble families. Anakin seemed puzzled, asking how one distinguished between the high and low without titles. Patiently, Hibris explained, "Similar to here, wealth and power determine status. In that world, I was not a noble. I was poor and ordinary." Concerned, Anakin asked, "Did you have family there?" Hibris replied, "Yes, I lived with my parents and my younger brother." Reflecting, Hibris admitted that she had once resented her family, but now found the memories warm and harmonious. Interrupting her, Anakin asked, "Why did you resent them?" Hibris responded with a tinge of sadness, "I thought my parents favored my brother. No, actually, I faced discrimination. Maybe my parents don't love me because I am obedient enough. That's how I blame myself." Growing up poor made her mature faster than others, and all she wanted was a word of praise. But the more she behaved maturely, the more her parents regarded it as her duty. Suddenly serious, Hibris turned to Anakin and said, "No child deserves differential treatment, so I will never forgive my parents. However, even though I hold a grudge against my parents, I still miss them and long to see them again. I want to have what I've lost back, and if I ever met them again, I would ask them why did they treat me that way." In their chatter, Hibris and Anakin soon arrived in the Randall district. They checked into an inn, where the innkeeper jokingly asked if they were newlyweds. The atmosphere became awkward, and before Hibris could respond, Anakin interjected, "Give this lady the best room you have. Any room is fine for me." With that settled, they retired to their respective rooms. After freshening up and sitting on the bed, Hibris couldn't help but sigh inwardly. After a night of carriage rides, I'm so tired, yet Anakin still looks so energetic. Just then, a young girl knocked on her door, delivering fresh towels. As they chatted, Hibris learned about the lively spots in the Randall district, including a recent addition of a night market. Intrigued, Hibris wondered, "I wonder how different this night market is from the one in my original world." On the other side, Hibris, knocked unconscious by Anakin, slowly regained consciousness in his quarters. Priest Matthias approached him, concerned, asking, "You collapsed at the doorstep, so I brought you inside. What happened?" Hibris sat up, rubbing his still sore neck, remembering Hibris's words from the night before. "Are you going to report me? Fine, that's exactly what I want." His heart ached again as he couldn't understand why the woman he wanted to keep always seemed to leave him. Hibris plunged into painful memories. His mother was once a young, beautiful, and admired dancer, but to bear him, she even changed her religion and the god that she worshipped. After enduring hardships to bring him into the world, she lost everything she had. Every time he mentioned his father, his mother would fly into a rage, throwing things and screaming hysterically at him. "Don't ever mention your father to me again. If it weren't for you, my life wouldn't have turned out like this. Every day, I wish I were dead when I look at you." Young Hibris would cover his head in anguish, believing it was all his fault and that he shouldn't have been born into this world. Whenever young Hibris woke from nightmares, he would stroke his sleeping mother's cheek, feeling her warmth. Hibris was terrified that his mother would really leave him. To ease his mother's burden as he grew older, Hibris sought out priest Matthias and expressed his desire to become a priest. Matthias took him in. However, on the night before Hibris left, his mother took her own life. Hibris regretted deeply. If only he hadn't gone to find priest Matthias, if only he had been by his mother's side that day, if only he could have persuaded her once more, would this tragedy have been averted? Hibris was always heartbroken, hating himself for his choices, until the day he met Eris for the first time, and a familiar feeling washed over him. If I told you that the moment I saw you, you reminded me of my deceased mother, would you believe me? The moment Hibris laid eyes on Eris for the first time, he was deeply drawn to her, her shattered soul, so similar to his mother's wounded one. That day, Eris was in a hurry, needing Hibris's help to find some information in the temple. If only he had told her then that he felt just as urgent as she did, would she have believed him? That night, his mother appeared in Hibris's dreams, still blaming him, still weeping. On Eris's coming-of-age ceremony, Hibris prayed for the gods' favor upon her, gazing into her stunning green eyes, which resembled a summer's day, yet held the pain of a torn soul. Perhaps it was her beauty that gave him pause, for Hibris couldn't help but wonder deep down, Lady Myserion, am I trying to save you? Whenever Eris mentioned wanting to die, Hibris was reminded of his mother, and he began to fear that he couldn't save even Eris. He prayed to the gods, begging them to let him reach out to her this time, but Eris refused his help, and it seemed like the gods weren't on his side again. On the other hand, Eris and Anakin arrived at the bustling night market in the vibrant Randall district, which seemed even livelier than they had imagined. Eris asked Anakin if he was hungry and what he fancied eating. Anakin absent-mindedly replied, "I'm okay." He seemed more focused than usual. Seeing his serious expression, Eris couldn't help but laugh and teased. "Even though it's chaotic here and we need to stay alert, today is about relaxing. No need to be so tense." After hearing Eris, Anakin seemed to relax a bit and nodded. Eris took Anakin's hand and couldn't help but act a little spoiled, saying, "I'm hungry, let's grab something to eat together." Then the two of them headed to a sausage grill stall. Watching the sizzling sausages, Eris immediately ordered 2 skewers. The stall owner looked at Anakin and jokingly said, "Oh, this handsome gentleman, are you two married? You're so young. Looks like you just got married not long ago." Anakin felt a bit helpless. He wanted to say no, but Eris quickly stopped him and said, "Yes, we're on our honeymoon." She even joked that Anakin wasn't usually so cold. He was just a bit shy around strangers. The stall owner laughed heartily, saying he had never seen such a beautiful lady before, and the two of them were truly a perfect match. Hearing this, Anakin couldn't help but blush, and Eris took the sausages, eager to eat. As soon as she took a bite, she immediately covered her mouth. It turned out that the spicy sausages were super hot, almost rivaling the taste of her hometown. She loved it. Anakin looked at the scene before him, feeling uplifted. He happily said, "This is the first time I've seen Master you enjoy eating so much. It's also the first time I've seen you smiled so happily." At that moment, a rum vendor nearby started calling out. Eris told Anakin, "Do you know what we need to have even more fun?" With a mischievous twinkle in her eye, Eris deliberately paused. Seeing Anakin's puzzled expression, Eris turned around with a smile and said, "Alcohol." Just as Anakin went to buy rum, Eris was drawn to the stage play in the night market. Before long, Anakin returned with 2 cups of rum, and the two of them happily drank while watching the show. The performance began, and the actors on stage vividly set the scene. Tonight's show is a tragic tale set in a family where a father is deceived by evil schemes, suspecting his son and wife, ultimately committing the foolish act of killing his own son with his own hands. Seeing this, Eris pondered, and the actor on stage continued dramatically. He could ask a sorceress to turn back time, but if he did, he would be executed for treason. Upon hearing this, Eris was now certain. It was the story from the royal family, and it was bound to be interesting. On stage, as the first act of the overture unfolded, beneath the dismal white lights, stood a man with golden hair, his back turned. Despite his towering stature, his silhouette appeared desolate and forlorn. The man murmured softly, "Truly heartless. All along, I have acted with honesty and integrity, serving as a servant to the nation, yet they betrayed me so easily. I fear not death, but the scheming villains who proliferate in this land." His voice grew impassioned as he raised his hands devoutly, continuing, "Though my body has been shamed and defiled, my soul remains pure, at least the gods know." With fervor, the man continued, dropping to his knees with a thud, "My yet unborn brother, now only you can protect this kingdom. Father, I have never coveted your throne. The truth will be revealed one day. Your eyes have been blinded by treachery. No matter how I plead innocence, you cannot see the truth." Then, the man drew a dagger, preparing to plunge it into his own heart. "My father, if it is your wish for me to take my own life." The actors on stage performed with emotion, while Eris in the audience watched attentively. Knowing the original content, her expression remained serious as she silently thought. In reality, Alex's brother didn't take his own life. Apparently, he was executed. But this is a stage performance. Surely there's some artistic license. Returning to the stage, the queen hurriedly approached, desperate to stop the man from taking his own life. "My beloved child, Mother knows better than anyone that you are innocent. Run away. Please put down the dagger and flee. Even if we cannot meet again in this life, it's better than being separated by life and death, isn't it?" However, the man did not halt his actions. "Mother, I cannot even prove my own innocence. Please do not shed tears for your foolish son." With the blade piercing his heart, the man fell, leaving behind the queen, cradling his lifeless body, weeping. In the second act, the emperor sat majestically within the palace, sternly accusing his eldest son. "I've cherished you like a treasure, yet you repay me with ingratitude. You've been eyeing my throne with malicious intent." The crown prince, feeling helpless, attempted to defend himself, but the ministers standing beside the emperor presented evidence. "Your Majesty, here is the evidence of the queen and the prince plotting treason. They've issued numerous bills to recruit soldiers." Watching the emperor wholeheartedly believe the ministers, the crown prince passionately defended himself. "Father, I've never entertained the thought of betraying you. If what I say is false, let the heavens strike me down." However, as soon as he uttered those words, lightning tore through the sky, followed by thunder. The grand palace fell silent for a moment, then the emperor erupted in fury. "Lock the prince up! Don't give him a drop of water to drink. As for the queen, she's still pregnant. Make sure she's watched closely." In the third act, a light rain fell from the sky, making the cold and damp weather even more dismal. In the slums, people, dressed in thin clothing, dragged their hungry and weak bodies as they queued up to receive the food distributed by the queen and the crown prince. Despite their efforts to assist the poor, the kind-hearted queen still felt they were not doing enough. The little food provided could only sustain them for a short while, which was not a sustainable solution. The wise crown prince suggested, if they could learn a skill, they might break free from this endless poverty. But their parents all forced their children to beg. Hearing this, Eris, seated among the audience, glanced at Anakin, thinking he might relate to the situation. At that moment, a minister approached. "Your Highness, to aid them, we plan to build an orphanage and a school here. However, we're short on funds. Would the Queen and the Prince be willing to contribute some royal funds to help these children?" Naturally, the Queen and the Crown Prince happily agreed and signed the documents. The scene shifted, showing the minister's sinister smirk. "I should probably hire a cheap Magitech scholar. Who knows, I might need to use lightning." In the fourth act, a group of treacherous ministers gathered together. The prince not only abstains from indulgence, but also remains incorruptible. Moreover, he's quite dedicated to strengthening the royal authority. This poses a great problem for us. Right now, he's just a prince, so he can't do anything to us. But once he ascends to the throne, our fate will be darker than the night. Amidst the chatter of the ministers, the head minister spoke up. If we can't win him over, then we must get rid of him. We must ensure the emperor personally abandons his own son to avoid any future trouble. The queen and the prince are always concerned about the poor. If we tell them we need money to aid the impoverished, they'll surely sign the documents. We'll use that money to recruit soldiers and then accuse them of treason." Upon hearing this plan, the ministers raised their glasses in celebration. Brilliant plan. In the fifth act, the sun shone brightly, and the weather was perfect. The emperor, the empress, and the crown prince enjoyed a cheerful afternoon tea in the garden, sharing rare leisure time together as a family. The empress looked happily at ease, saying, "Since the weather is so nice, I have some good news to share." "What could it be? You're usually so straightforward," the emperor asked eagerly. The empress gently caressed her slightly protruding belly and said, "We're expecting another little prince." Upon hearing that they would have another prince, the emperor excitedly grabbed the empress's hand, and the crown prince happily blessed his mother. "From now on, let's trust each other and never let go of these hands we hold." The family agreed upon this pact. On the stage, the drama unfolded magnificently, while Eris pondered in the audience. She turned to Anakin and said, "What if your life is actually a huge stage play, and the ending is already predetermined? You just have to play your role. Maybe you're not the protagonist. You might be a supporting character or just a passerby. What would you think?" Anakin, however, didn't seem bothered by such thoughts. He believed that living life to the fullest was enough. Eris, feeling a bit indignant for him, remarked, "So, because you're a supporting character, people would mistreat you and show less compassion to you. You're all right with that?" Anakin remained calm and replied, "Knights aren't supposed to seek attention. If I wanted those things, I wouldn't have chosen this profession." Eris was left speechless by his response. "You're really devoid of ambition and goals. You are no fun," she retorted. Anakin chuckled and countered, "Do I seem like that? I've always believed I'm living my life to the fullest. Maybe everyone's striving in their own way, so it's hard to notice." Eris found his words reasonable. How could she casually judge someone else's efforts? She had exerted every effort to return to her original world, which might seem ridiculous to others. The closer to the light, the clearer the shadow. Perhaps those efforts were only visible when facing death. Anakin continued, "There's no need to let everyone know how hard I'm trying. As long as you, the master, know, it's enough. What do you think?" Was this a confession? Eris felt her mind go blank. How could she answer his question? She was afraid if she did say something, she wouldn't be able to take it back. The scene shifted as on the two arrived at a restaurant, ordering some snacks. The waiter couldn't help but comment, "You look a lot like that famous Lady Maserian." He thought she resembled Lady Maserian. Eris jokingly replied, "Many people think so." At that moment, she was reading a newspaper article about her disappearance on the magical train. The paper raised various questions about her whereabouts. "Lady Maserian missing. Is the magical train safe? Will it reach its destination and return smoothly?" Seeing the headlines, Eris couldn't help but smirk to herself. The big picture of the imperial family and the Marquis should have been ruined by now. They must be freaking out, right? With this in mind, Eris felt satisfied and decided to stay in Randall for a while. She instructed Anakin to ask for a boat from the inn to go play by the lakeside. Anakin thought it was a great idea, so the two set off eagerly with their prepared food. On the way, Eris encountered a little girl from the inn. The girl looked at her expectantly and then placed freshly picked flowers in her hair. Seeing Eris like this, the girl couldn't help but exclaim, "You're so beautiful!" Eris quite liked the little girl, complimenting her cuteness and giving her some gold coins, reminding her not to let others take them away. The weather that day was sunny and pleasant, with a gentle breeze tousling Eris's hair. Lost in the rare moment of tranquility, Eris smoothed her hair and said, "Let's go, Anakin." Anakin turned around, responding to his master with a warm smile. At the center of the lake, Eris was still pondering Anakin's words from last night. She had thought about it all night and decided it was better to say it out. So she said earnestly, "Anakin, you're a character from a book I've read." Anakin paused in his rowing, and Eris continued, "This world is from the pages of a book I've read. You're a supporting character in Eris's life, and you've fallen in love with her." Pausing there, Eris looked at her reflection in the lake, a terrifying beauty. She was afraid of growing accustomed to this face. What if she returned to her original world and found her own reflection unfamiliar? With these thoughts, Eris nervously reached out and disturbed her reflection in the water. "I'm sorry, Anakin, for taking away the person you were meant to love." Anakin couldn't shake Eris's words from his mind. He was confused. "Are you saying I'm not real? How can you be so sure I would fall in love with her?" Eris explained, "Because that's how it's written in the book. I've seen the ending of this story." Anakin interrupted, "But what if I don't follow what's written in the book?" Eris replied, "If you don't follow the script, the plot will correct itself according to the laws of causality. Even if you were to cut my throat with a sword right now, I wouldn't die because it's not my time to die in the book yet." After a brief silence, Anakin asked seriously, "So, does that mean I will eventually fall in love with you at some point?" Eris was speechless. She hadn't considered that question. Who exactly did Anakin fall in love with? Was it herself or Eris? Then he asked again, "Will you fall in love with me too?" Eris turned away, giving a faint reply, "No, I won't fall in love with you, so you shouldn't fall in love with me either." Despite what she said, Eris was afraid inside. "Actually, I'm afraid I might fall in love with you." Then she felt a pang of regret. Why did I give such a selfish answer? I've made up my mind to leave this world. How can I be so irresponsible? Troubled Eris let Anakin continue rowing as she gazed at the distant cliffs. Suddenly, she blurted out an idea. "I haven't tried jumping into the river yet." She urged Anakin to row the boat to the edge of the cliff. Anakin warned her that it was too dangerous, but Eris insisted that the world's laws of causality would protect her. Standing at the edge of the cliff, Eris recalled a movie where the protagonist had only two ways to return from a dream to reality: death or jumping into water. Peering down at the cliff's base, it seemed a bit frightening, but even so, her determination to try it out remained unshaken. With a splash, she plunged into the water, feeling a strange sense of enjoyment. Perhaps the deeper she sank, the sooner she could return. Suddenly, someone grabbed her waist, and amidst the splashes, Eris was pulled out of the water, coughing incessantly on the shore. The hands that saved her turned out to be Jason's. He was so worried about Eris, shouted, "Are you out of your mind?" Seeing him clearly, Eris couldn't help but wonder, what was Jason doing here? Then a sharp pain shot through her arm as Jason tightly gripped it. Eris asked him to let go, silently wondering where Anakin had gone. In the next moment, Anakin appeared, draping his cloak over Eris's wet body. Anakin's displeased voice rang out as he angrily addressed Jason. "How dare you touch a lady without permission?" The tension escalated as the two men locked eyes, their confrontation on the brink of violence. Jason retorted to Anakin, "A knight who can't even protect his own master. What right do you have to lecture others?" The atmosphere plunged into icy silence, leaving Eris feeling awkward as she wondered, what's going on here? Back at the inn, Eris changed into clean clothes, intending to stay for a while longer. Unexpectedly, Jason showed up, prompting Eris to sigh inwardly. It's such a pity to go back to the capital like this. As she was about to leave the room, Jason appeared, teasingly saying, "Where are you off to, Lady Mazarian? Don't tell me you're trying to run away again." "Are you spying on me, Sir Kajar?" Eris expressed her dissatisfaction. Jason explained, "Because of you, the capital is in chaos. They tried to get as much as possible out of your popularity by advertising the train with your name, but in the end, you've gone missing." He also reminded Eris, "Although you haven't ascended yet, your coming-of-age ceremony has been held. You're practically royalty now." Clearly surprised by Jason's earnest effort to find her, Eris casually mentioned she was going to a souvenir shop and would be back soon. Jason said Anakin was packing and couldn't accompany her, so he volunteered to keep her company. Eris sighed. Do as you wish. Soon, the two arrived at a boutique gemstone store where the attendant warmly welcomed them. "Madam, are you looking for gifts? Is this gentleman your husband?" Hearing this, Jason flashed a charming smile, while Eris replied curtly, "We're not married. I'm buying a gift for my attendant." Jason teased her. "You deny it so firmly, it really hurts." Eris coolly replied, "That's not my concern," before asking Jason how he knew she was there. Jason innocently responded, "You caused such a big trouble. Did you really think no one was tracking you?" Eris admitted it was just later than she had expected, but she hadn't anticipated Sir Kajar personally coming after her. Jason continued, saying he had come voluntarily. Eris casually suggested, "It's been a while since you last went home. Aren't you going to greet your parents?" Jason retorted, "I don't really like chatting with elders." Before he could finish, Eris interrupted, "I don't particularly enjoy chatting with you either." Jason, unfazed, replied mischievously, "Then let's not chat. Can we do something else?" Eris was speechless at his attitude and swiftly stomped on Jason's foot. Jason didn't seem to feel any pain. Trained from a young age, it was nothing to him. He joked, "You are quite rude." Eris retorted without hesitation, "You shouldn't be surprised if someone is rude to you when you vulgarly messed with them first." Jason was taken aback by her words, saying, "I care about you. You are acting in a way that gets my attention." Eris's tone turned cold. "Are you blaming me for that?" Jason became serious. "Yes, so please tell me, how can I not care about you?" Angrily, Eris replied, "Why are you asking me such a question? Even I've never cared about myself." Jason was stunned. He hadn't expected such an answer. At that moment, the attendant suddenly appeared, successfully breaking the awkwardness. He happily presented a box, took out a gemstone called Vivian's Tear, the lake fairy, and boasted that it was a precious gemstone unique to his shop. Eris was quite satisfied and instructed to make a necklace using the gemstones. Jason was also looking at the gems on the counter, carefully examining them. As Eris walked towards her, she asked if he was going to buy some for Helena. Jason said he wanted to personally make jewelry for her. Eris was speechless for a moment. She suggested Jason buy a ready-made one instead. If the craftsmanship wasn't good, the recipient would be embarrassed. Jason passionately said, "I just want her to carry something made by me." Eris shuddered inwardly, thinking, "He's really a pervert, even worse than Hibris. How come there's not a single normal person here? I almost feel sorry for Helena." Suddenly, she noticed a gemstone that was different from the others. The attendant told her, "This gemstone is the hardest to sell. It's dull in color, not vibrant enough, and prone to scratches." Eris listened thoughtfully. Dull and prone to scratches because of softness. No one chooses it since it isn't shiny. It's just like herself. She immediately asked the attendant to make another necklace out of this gemstone, specifying the design. The waiter reminded her repeatedly that it would be uncomfortable to wear. Ignoring him, Eris muttered, "It's not like I'm wearing it myself." As they walked out of the shop, Anakin was already waiting there. He had heard that some thieves had learned of Eris's presence in the village and had ambushed the forest, so he had come to ensure her safety. Before Anakin could finish speaking, Eris interrupted him and ordered him to kneel down. The woman coldly demanded the man to kneel, but in the next moment, Eris took out the custom-made gemstone necklace and gently helped Anakin put it on. Anakin looked at the woman in front of him, emotions welling up in his eyes. He didn't know if he would fall in love with her in the future, but right now, he felt nothing but fondness for her. After putting it on, Anakin gently touched the necklace, and Eris asked if he felt uncomfortable, to which Anakin nodded. Eris was pleased. She liked Anakin's straightforwardness. However, her intention was to make him uncomfortable. "So, in the future, whenever you feel uncomfortable around your neck, you'll think of me," she said. Saying this, she suddenly turned a bit shy. She was a bit annoyed with herself for having such thoughts. Wasn't this just as perverse as Jason? Meanwhile, Jason on the side had a look of enjoying the show. The group quickly set off, with Jason's voice echoing in the carriage. Do you know what kind of ending awaits a noble lady and her knight when they elope? If the royal family and the Marquis find out, your knight will be beheaded for enchanting you, and you'll be forever imprisoned in the palace." Eris looked displeased. "Elope? Sir Kajar, I didn't know you were so romantic. You saw me jump off the cliff, don't you understand? I came to Randall to seek death." Jason didn't believe Eris's words, thinking that women in love were blinded by romance. An impatient Eris retorted, "If you don't want to believe it, that's your business." Jason started to be shocked too, asking Eris what was the reason. Eris coldly replied, "Do you really need a reason? I'm going to die because even if I breathe my last breath now, I have nothing to cling to." Eris knew that Jason, who was determined to live on despite bearing the tragic fate to slay the dragon, would never understand, no matter how she explained it. She told Jason, "You have a strong desire to see Helena, but I don't, so please don't bother yourself with trivial sympathy." Jason insisted that if Eris truly understood his heart, she wouldn't say such things. Eris grew even more impatient. "Enough already. As you said, after the coming-of-age ceremony, I am like royalty, so stop discussing these presumptuous topics." Just as the two were still talking, a commotion erupted outside the carriage. It turned out to be a group of menacing bandits. "Hand over Lady Myserion." The rumors were true. Indeed, bandits had ambushed Eris along the way. The man who was just arguing with the woman a moment ago now stood in front of a group of bandits to protect her. "Clear the path now, and maybe I'll let you all live." The bandits laughed heartily upon hearing this, confident in their numbers, and demanded he leave immediately. Jason, being the dragon slayer, felt his conqueror's spirit ignited by these bandits. In this critical moment, he urged Eris and Anakin to leave first. Eris was anxious. "What about you?" She didn't want Jason to risk facing the bandits alone. Jason firmly said, "If these are the only thieves we encounter, I'll leave with you after dealing with them. But I believe there's more than one gang of thieves." With that, Jason turned around, suavely stating, "When we return to the capital, I'm willing to accept Lady Myserion's punishment. I hope you won't be too angry." Eris shouted loudly, hoping he wouldn't act recklessly. At that moment, Anakin rode over on horseback, reaching out to Eris urgently, eager to take her away from this dangerous place. Eris placed her hand on his, and the two sat on the horse together. Anakin sensed Eris's unease and encouraged her to relax, leaning her against his chest for comfort. As they galloped away on the journey home, they grew farther and farther from Jason. Though Eris didn't particularly like him, she still wished for his safety. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the two had escaped the danger zone. Eris asked Anakin softly how far they were from the capital. Anakin estimated it would take about 2 more days. Eris couldn't help but feel a bit melancholic at the thought. "By the time we reach the capital, my butt will probably be worn out." Concerned, Anakin immediately suggested they buy a cushion from the village. Eris, feeling lazy, waved off the idea, saying it was too much trouble. Seeing Eris's gloomy expression, Anakin felt a pang of sympathy and suggested, "How about I tell you a story?" Eris perked up slightly at the idea, asking if he was going to tell his own story. Anakin dismissed the notion, saying his own story was too dull to share. If he had to tell a story, it would be about the present because he didn't want to dwell on the past. Hearing this, Eris fell into deep thought. If one day she became a part of Anakin's past, would he treat her as casually as he does now? Perhaps she wasn't significant to him beyond being his master, which is why he remained faithful. Anakin continued, "So please, don't ask me to dwell on the past or to plan for the future. I'm simple-minded. I can only focus on one thing at a time." Eris felt her heart skip a beat as she leaned against his chest and asked, "What do you want to do now?" Anakin embraced her gently and whispered, "Right now, I just want to make sure you safely return to the capital." In that moment, Eris couldn't deceive herself anymore or evade her feelings. "Indeed, I do like this person. No matter how selfish or stubborn I am, he never blames me. He's the only one standing by my side, belonging only to me. Perhaps, even after I return to my original world, I won't be able to forget you. So I hope you can be like me and never forget me. Remember me forever.